Secretary Perry, for your testimony and leadership today. I had the honor of joining a couple of our colleagues in a visit to the Middle East here a couple of weeks ago, and as we were flying over Jordan right around dusk, I couldn't help but look down and see Amman, Jordan, right below us on an airplane, and think about what if the great inventions surrounding us hadn't been discovered by people in America. I was looking down at roads that were filled with cars. Henry Ford, who perfected the assembly line and the mass manufacturing of automobiles, looking at houses that were lit up by lights that Thomas Edison helped invent, flying on an airplane that is the outgrowth of work first done by the Wright brothers in the United States, all of whom played an incredible part of who we are today as a nation. And I began to wonder, what happens if those next inventions aren't from the United States? What happens if it's not America that discovers those things, or people in America that discover those things, but it's China, it's India, it's Russia, it's somebody else? What happens when the great things that have fundamentally transformed our economy come from somewhere else? And so that's what, when I look at the budget for the Department of Energy, I am concerned about some of the areas of research, and the advanced research in particular. I want to make sure that we continue to advance in this country, because what happens if that great next energy discovery isn't in the United States, but it is indeed in China or India, and they're able to manufacture it, they're able to capitalize on those jobs, and the next time we fly over, whether it's Amman, Jordan, or Denver, Colorado, we look down and don't see the impact that America has had, but the impact that some other nation has had, because we took our eye off the ball. And so we're proud of the contributions that our national lab system has made, the efforts we've made in advanced energy research, incredibly proud of the work that the National Renewable Energy Laboratory has done in Colorado. And I think we have achieved so much because we've had that research and that partnership with the federal government that we can't get rid of that sort of idea that we have the opportunity to partner and build funding opportunities. And so the benefits for our nation in energy security, energy resiliency, energy affordability, significant economic job creation, economic advantages to this research, but we'll only be able to achieve them if we continue to support our scientists and engineers at our federal facilities and research facilities. So can you give me the assurances that I need, many of us need, to make sure that we continue our strong support of our national labs, and that you understand the importance of DOE-sponsored research, and that you'll support it going forward?
Yes, sir. Senator, the thing I've been most proud of in the year that I've spent as the Secretary of Energy is being able to go to these national labs. As I said in my opening remarks, and I talked about, I've never met any more patriotic, more committed individuals as those that are working at our national labs. Obviously, the support of them from Congress is very powerful. It is palpable. It will continue on. I know that. And to address with specificity what you brought up in a really beautiful observation about this country, the dollars that you all are going to appropriate, the dollars that we've asked for exascale computing, probably will make the biggest impact upon all of that type of research that you're making reference to, the innovation that's going to come out of the labs. It's going to be expedited substantially by the commitment to at the exascale supercomputing capacity that we have at those, and our commitment is very deep and broad in that arena.
Well, Mr. Secretary, I look forward to working with you on that funding, as well as a number of other areas of funding to make sure that we continue being the pride of the United States in our national lab system, but more than that, the pride and envy of the world as they look at our great centers of innovation and excellence represented by our research, development, and national lab system. Switching now real quick to grid cybersecurity issues, the Office of Electricity Delivery and Energy Reliability has led an effort in coordination with the labs to talk about the technical challenges of grid modernization. In many cases, these assets that we're working with are privately owned and don't have the resources for research and development on their own. Therefore, DOE has provided a lot of support in that research, testing, and validation and deployment of technologies for the grid. The budget request splits the office into two, I believe. One focused on cybersecurity and one on energy, and one focused on electricity delivery. So you have one focused on cybersecurity and energy security, and one focused on electricity delivery. So I'm going to ask a few questions. I'm going to run out of time, so maybe we can continue this conversation after the hearing. The cross-cutting initiative, the DOE Grid Modernization Initiative, and the Grid Modernization Laboratory Consortium have brought together technical expertise from national labs to address the challenges that the grid faces from a cybersecurity and energy storage standpoint. The cross-cutting initiative has been a success, I think most people would admit, and it's important the DOE continue to lead this program. So number one, can you comment on the department's plans for these two efforts? If you could get back to us on that, that'd be great. And then this week we've heard a lot about foreign nations attacking our grid. We have the possibility of a foreign nation that has attacked our Colorado Department of Transportation with the SamSam ransomware virus, shutting down 2,000 plus computers in the Department of Transportation. Are you confident the department's budget request will provide the resources necessary to ensure that our electric grid remains secure? Is there something else that we could do to support a strong, coordinated, interagency federal effort to make sure our critical infrastructure has the necessary cybersecurity tools? And there's other discussions we could have. I'm out of time, but
Senator, I will get those to you post-haste.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
And recognizing again the Secretary's time schedule and that we have 4 more colleagues, we'll try to get through as quickly. Senator Wyden and then Senator Heinrich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Secretary, good to see you.
Thank you, Senator.
A little bit of Pacific Northwest business. I told the Bush administration, George W. Bush, his folks, that Bonneville wasn't going to get sold off on my watch. And it isn't going to get sold off now either. So I just want to put you on notice on that.
Yes, sir.
We also are very concerned in our part of the world about eliminating the National Energy Technology Lab at Albany, which I think is doing singularly good work. I was in Albany, Oregon, just a couple of days ago and heard again. I hope you'll reconsider that. I do want to ask you about Hanford, because you're up on the layout there. You were there recently. On March 6th, the project director for the waste treatment plant sent the private construction contractor a letter demanding that the company explain why it couldn't document that the steel used at the plant was up to safety standards. And the project director said that this was a potentially unrecoverable quality issue. Basically, what that means in English is they couldn't open the plant after billions of dollars had been spent and decades of effort, if that was actually the case. A week later, Mr. Hamill was transferred. And I like to believe the best in people, but it's hard to see that that was a coincidence. So I want to ask a couple of yes or no questions. I want Mr. Hamill to promptly provide the committee with a detailed history and explanation about this potentially devastating safety issue at the $17 billion waste treatment plant that hasn't yet treated an ounce of radioactive waste. Will you, yes or no, direct him to provide us that information?
Yes.
Great. Second, I'd like you to make Mr. Hamill available to us so that we can ask him directly without interference about this issue. Will you do so?
I'm not sure I can make him do that, but the
But
the request would certainly
you will
be
tell him that it's acceptable to you for him to sit down directly with us.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Then I think that just allows me to wrap up and save the chair a little bit more time. This is extraordinarily important.
Yes, sir.
We have seen billions of dollars go into this. You've now got the project director saying that there is a potentially devastating safety issue, and he has just been transferred after reporting this. So this story really needs now to get into the details. It's a whistleblower story. It is a safety story. It's an accountability story. When you met with me privately before you were confirmed, you said that on those kinds of issues, we could work together. The answers you've given this morning are constructive. I need follow-up. We need to have this done promptly. And if it's not, then we'll have to go the route of the Inspector General. I'd rather not have to go that route. And by indicating that you will tell him to provide us the information, the detailed history and the explanation of this potentially devastating safety issue, that's a constructive first step. And that you will tell him it is acceptable to you that he meet with us without interference. That's a constructive step. So I look forward to pursuing this and talking about it more in the future.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Sounds like you got a plan. Senator Manchin.
Thank you. Secretary Perry, welcome. I want to start out by talking a little bit about Laboratory-Directed Research and Development, or LDRD. It's, in my view, an incredibly important investment in high-risk but high-reward activities at our national labs. Allows our scientists at places like Los Alamos and Sandia, as well as other labs around the country, to pursue innovative solutions to some of our nation's most vexing energy and also national security problems. Do you agree that LDRD is important, in fact, vital to the lab's ability to recruit and retain the best and brightest scientists and engineers?
Certainly important. Yes, sir.
Do you support maintaining the lab director's current discretion to set aside up to 6% as authorized by Congress for LDRD?
I will follow the directives of Congress, sir.
So you're comfortable with that figure as it's currently set?
If you all think that is the appropriate number, we will work within the parameters of that.
Let me ask you a little bit about ARPA-E. I'm still trying to wrap my head around, given the advancements that have been made there with solar cells, with power controls, with lithium-ion batteries. Why would we want to zero out that program?
Senator, I've come from a background of having worked in that type of environment, if you will. That was what I did when I was the governor of the state of Texas with the Emerging Technology Fund. So I know the results of really well-managed programs. And I know that there are people on both sides of the aisle that are very supportive of ARPA-E. I've looked at the results of it and have found some very, very positive things that came out of it. So let me just leave it at this. If this Congress, if this committee, they support the funding of that, it will be operated in a way that you will be most pleased with.
I appreciate that. And I know the chair is a supporter, and I as well think it's important that this body revisit some of those funding levels.
Concur.
Moving on to storage, Secretary, your testimony indicates that energy storage remains an important area of focus. We've certainly seen huge strides in storage in the last few years. I am pleased to see the request restores full funding for the Energy Storage Innovation Hub known as J. Caesar. I hope the hub will soon be renewed for 5 years or reauthorized. However, your budget, as I mentioned, zeros ARPA-E, nearly eliminates the Office of Electricity Storage Research Program and starts a new Beyond Batteries initiative. Talk to me a little bit about your focus on storage, and then explain what the Beyond Batteries initiative is.
In a broad sense, I think that battery storage is the holy grail of the energy storage side of things. So when we're able to do that, I have great confidence that, and it'll probably come out of a national lab, or at least some of the work come out of a national lab. Programs grow, they mature, and I think that's what you're seeing happen here. Beyond Batteries is a visionary quest to find us in a position to lead the world in battery storage, new materials. It's one of the reasons that this country needs to be self-sufficient as we can be when it comes to rare earth minerals, what Senator Manchin was talking about in his district, some deposits there that are very positive in that direction. So I hope you will look at this, Senator, as the next step, an appropriate next step. DOE has been historically done early stage financing, get innovations to particular places, commercialize them, and those programs are mature, and we go on to the next challenge. So that's what we see.
I'm going to run out of time before long. I would just make the argument. I'm certainly intrigued by the what Beyond Batteries would mean. I think we need to be open to new technologies. But while lithium-ion has certainly had a huge impact on the market, I think additional new chemistries, for example, are an appropriate place that's still at that same level of development within the lab's role as early stage, not late stage technology
Yes, sir.
transfer. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Heinrich. Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Secretary, Hawaii has the most forward-thinking renewable electricity goal in the country of reaching 100% of reliance on renewables and alternatives by 2045. And this budget goes in totally the wrong direction by cutting 66% for renewable energy and energy efficiency and 60% for electric grid modernization. It's not only Hawaii moving to sustainable energy, there is a huge future global market for clean energy technologies, and your budget would weaken the United States in developing the clean energy technologies that the rest of the world wants to buy. So according to a report by Bloomberg New Energy Finance, China invested $132 billion in clean energy technologies last year compared to $57 billion in the United States. And China isn't reducing its investments in clean energy R&D, so why should the United States? So I want to ask you, what I think we are going in the wrong direction, so why are we doing that? Why? I know that you said that we are continuing to provide resources for research in fossil fuels and nuclear power. Where's the commitment to renewable sources of energy when you're facing these kinds of budget cuts?
Yeah. Certainly, they're still there, some almost $700 million of funding for that, and we're really focusing on early stage R&D, and we're going to maintain the United States leadership position in these very transformative sciences. And I'm comfortable, Senator, that the commitment is still there. We've had some great success stories, whether it was dealing with hydrogen fuel cells in automobiles, whether it's a Solar Energy Office met and exceeded its goals over 5 of the last 5 years. In short, we're hitting or exceeding our goals, and then you set new goals. Some of the work that we're doing on carbon capture and utilization and getting that technology out into the world, into India and China, for instance, can be very, very helpful to the environment.
So, Mr. Secretary, I understand the importance of the early stage R&D, but if you don't go beyond early stages, then the technology that's developed can never possibly be utilized. For example, in September, this committee's Energy Subcommittee held a hearing on how to foster innovation in the energy sector with an emphasis on the role of our national energy labs. And the director of Emerging Technology Strategy for Duke Energy, one of the largest electricity utility companies in the country, explains that utilities need to know that a new technology fully works before they trust it on their power system. So she explained that it's not necessarily fundamental sciences or what I would call early stage R&D, but the fact of the matter is we can't operate out of a system with technology solutions that don't have history. So she continued that anybody who says the national labs are infringing upon the potential of the private sector perhaps doesn't understand the complexity of the system we are operating. It's one of the reasons that I introduced the Next Generation Electric Systems Act last Congress to support public-private partnerships to demonstrate how to integrate energy storage, rooftop solar, and other advanced electric grid technologies. So I do thank the chair and ranking member for including advanced grid demonstration grants in their energy bill, and I wish the president's budget had the same foresight. So my point is, Mr. Secretary, we need to support beyond the early stage stuff. So, I hope that you recognize the continuum needs for the alternative energy sector. Okay?
I do.
Thank you, Senator Hirono. Senator Smith, and recognizing that we're trying to keep the Secretary on time, so we will be very quick.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Secretary. And Mr. Secretary, it's very nice to meet you, and thank you for being here. I'm very glad that Senator Hirono asked the question about the Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy Office. I strongly support that and appreciate what I think was a willingness, I hope a willingness to work with us on getting that budget number up to a place that would work much better for my state. I also would just like to quickly note I have a similar request, I'll say, on the importance of weatherization assistance, which is so important in Minnesota. The weatherization assistance program has helped. It helps seniors stay in their homes. It helps young families afford their homes because they can afford energy better when we weatherize their houses. So important in Minnesota. And as a former business person, I appreciate that the return on investment for this program is good. According to Oak Ridge National Lab, we see a $1.72 benefit for every dollar that's invested in weatherizing homes. And of course, it creates a lot of jobs, too. And so I just want to ask you, would you be, I'd really like to work with you on this as well and see if we can't find some common ground on keeping the weatherization assistance program working well for Minnesota and our country.
Yes, Senator, we'll work with you. As a governor, let me just say, I think it's really important for the states to play a very important role in that arena as well.
Yes, I agree with that, and our state does play an important role, and we're looking for a good partnership with the federal government. Thank you, Madam
Senator
Chair.
Smith. Senator King.
I'm going to try for 30 seconds.
Governor. Governor.
Governor
How are you,
Perry,
sir?
welcome. Or
Yes, sir.
Secretary.
Thank you, Governor.
You're supposed to call by
Senator.
your highest ever title in governor.
I'm not going to get into that, sir. I'm just glad to be here in any role.
Three quick points. Number one, congratulations on the formation of the Cybersecurity, Energy Security, and Emergency Response Office. Very timely, very important. I think a great initiative, and look forward to working with you on it. This is an area of huge national vulnerability. The fact that you've created an office to focus exclusively on that problem, I think, is commendable, and I certainly, as I say, look forward to working with you on that. That's number one.
Thank you, sir.
Number two is, please maintain the focus on research. I believe one of the most important things the federal government can do is do research that isn't necessarily going to pay off right away, because the commercial sector does that very well. But we all know that we wouldn't have fracking, wouldn't have the revolution in the price of oil and gas that we have, but for support from the Department of Energy many years ago. We need to be thinking in the future about that kind of support for future technologies that we perhaps can't even imagine now. So research, however it's defined, whichever department it's in, I think is one of the most important functions that the Department of Energy can perform. So I hope you will continue that focus on things like storage, for example, which you've characterized as one of the really important parts of the energy future of this country. Committed?
Yes, sir.
And
all the way.
Number three, weatherization. It really is important. I want to echo my colleague from Minnesota. We face situations in Maine where people have to choose between medication, heating their home, and putting food on the table. And weatherization is a great way. It's a great way of avoiding expenditures in the future. So please, if the Congress refunds, reestablishes that, I hope the department will continue to actively promote it, because it's very important to our constituents.
Senator King, the department is going to be a good partner. But more importantly, having been an appropriator in one of my previous lives, having been an agency head, and then having been a governor and now the Secretary of Energy, I respect this process. And if you see fit, this committee sees fit, Congress sees fit to fund particular line items, I give you my solemn oath that it will be administered and managed as transparently and as successfully as possible.
Mr. Secretary, I can't ask more than that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Senator King. Mr. Secretary, thank you. This is well ahead of Senate time. We are 1 minute over your hard stop, so I think we did pretty well. I think you heard, sir, the concerns from many about these budget category areas. We'll be looking critically at them as we focus on these important priorities, whether they be weatherization, cleanup, cyber, but we appreciate the opportunity to work with you and your team.
Senator, thank you, and thank you again for your thoughtfulness in allowing me to walk out. Thank you all for your pleasant experience today.
Happy to be with you. The committee stands adjourned.